Police reform, is it really needed? I will not only discuss and respond to that question, but I'll also discuss whether or not that is the solution to solve the real problems that plague our black communities and whether police reform will only make it worse. Hi, I am Jerry and Quick, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Division Conspiracy Unification. My goal and my vision is to unite and bring us closer together as a nation with the truth, something which is very, very hard to come by today. While I do advocate that we stop living in the past before we can move forward to a bright new future, I do focus on the truth concerning our dark past history and the mudpole theory, because that is what is being used to divide us. In order to understand the underlying causes for our division, you must know the truth concerning our dark past history first. How the truth is being changed, misrepresented, distorted, not fully disclosed, and in some cases even lied about. We need to know who, how, and why we are being divided as a nation before there's any hope for us to unite and come closer together as a nation. Well, I have been criticized in the mudpole theory and in my videos for spending too much time on discussing myself and my experiences, which I have deemed to be necessary. I'm now focused on trying to edit a lot of that information out of my videos to try and shorten my videos so that people who are interested in the subject matters that I will be discussing will not only watch the video, but will watch it to the end. If you're interested in knowing more about me and how I have acquired the knowledge and expertise of the subject matters that I discuss, read the mudpole theory. I will provide a link below where it can be ordered through Amazon, or you can order it through almost any bookstore. In my last video, I did disclose to my viewers that I am white, 73 years young, and that I'm a retired lawyer. What I didn't talk about in my last video was my motivation and incentive for wanting to be a lawyer. When I was approximately 15 years old, I personally witnessed a classic textbook case of police brutality. I saw two white police officers enter the restaurant that I was sitting in front of, approached a white man who was eating lunch, and even though I could not hear what was being said, after some exchange of words, the man stood up, turned around, and put his hands behind his back, and he was handcuffed. At that time, I was sitting in a car next to the police car with the window rolled down because it was rather hot, and cars at that time didn't have air conditioning. Since the police car was next to the car I was sitting in, I could hear and see everything that was going on. Well, the policeman opened the back door and told the man to get in, but before getting in, the man asked what he was being arrested for. That officer took out his billy stick, which was later banned for police officers to use, and started hitting the man. The other officer came running around the police car with his billy stick drawn and started hitting the man too. Of course, the man got into the back seat of the police car. To me, I knew that what I had witnessed was wrong, but I also knew that I couldn't do anything to help him. This is when I made up my mind to be a lawyer so that I would be in a better position to help people like that man get fair treatment and justice in the future. Because we were very, very poor, I knew that the likelihood that I could be a lawyer was slim and none. Through hard work, dedication, and the sacrifices that I had to make, I was able to graduate from law school, took the bar exam, and was sworn in and admitted to practice law on September 27, 1976, almost 44 years ago. Based on my personal experience and some of the things that I had been told, my opinion of police officers when I first started practicing law was not very good. However, even though I was, and to some extent still am, an outspoken critic of the police, over the years, my opinion, based on my prior experience, has dramatically changed. I've represented clients who, when being arrested, have not only been combative, but have resisted arrest and made it very, very difficult for police to do their job. And I've always told and advised my clients, rather than being combative, just get in the back seat and that they would get their day in court. Over the last 40 years, and especially over the last 30 years, it has only gotten worse for police since the Rodney King incident in 1991. You can rest assured that most, if not all, police are aware that there have been 97 police officers killed in this country while acting in the line and scope of their duties as a police officer since January the 1st, 2020 to June the 7th, 2020. And I'm aware of at least 4 that have been killed since then. I fully understand why police may be overly cautious and protective while exercising their duty to protect and serve. Most police departments now require, when answering a call or complaint, another police officer going in a separate vehicle as backup. Even when making a routine traffic stop, most police departments will dispatch another police car to go where the stop was made as a backup. Most people don't realize the dangers and fears that police officers face on an almost daily basis. Like all of us, when their shifts are over, they simply want to go home to their families. I realize that there are a lot of people, including me, who have had less than pleasant experiences with police, especially when you are pulled over and the officer is rude, impolite, and the experience is very unpleasant. Keep in mind that he or she is taught to be very, very cautious and to, quote, get control of the situation before the situation gets control of you, end quote. This is not only for the protection of the officer, but also for the protection of the defendant and the general public that may be present. By witnessing the classic textbook case of police brutality, I judged all police officers on the actions of 2 police officers, and I was wrong. In my next video, I'll be discussing from my perspective and from a legal perspective the death of George Floyd and analyzing the evidence that is currently available and how I would defend the 4 police officers who have been charged with murder. Of course, as I have told my clients through the years, I don't have a crystal ball, so there's no way I can predict the final outcome as so many people are currently doing. In my last video, I stated that it is wrong to stereotype or judge any person or group of people based on the actions of one or a few. The same principle applies to police officers or to any profession or group. While there are a few rotten apples or bad police officers, the vast majority are great and are dedicated to protect and serve. I recently heard someone say that the percentage of bad police officers is only 5%, but based on my prior experiences, I would say it is less than 1/2 of that percentage. While there are people who will take responsibility for their wrongdoings and admit their guilt, there are those that want to make excuses and put the blame on others. Often the blame is placed on the police, and while it may be true in some cases, it is generally not true in most cases. As stated earlier, don't prejudge, but wait until all the facts are in before you pass judgment and give your opinion. Not long after George Floyd's death, the Democrats prepared a police reform bill, and since the Democrats control the House, it was passed through the House and was sent to the Senate. On June 17, 2020, President Trump signed his executive order on police reform. Of course, the Democrats criticized President Trump for taking too long to do anything concerning police reform. However, President Trump stated that he wanted to meet with grieving families and law enforcement before doing anything concerning police reform, which, in my opinion, was the right thing to do. Currently, the Democratic bill is in the Senate waiting for the Senate to agree to the House bill. The Senate has made a proposal, but because the Democrats claim that it doesn't go far enough, they have rejected the Senate proposal. A senator has stated that the Senate has agreed to 75% of the House bill, but that is not acceptable to the Democrats. Here we go again. Apparently, unless the Senate gives in, there may be no bill for President Trump to sign. And if the Senate does give in and agree to the Democrats' demands, I hope that President Trump will refuse to sign it into law for reasons I will discuss later. Since police reform has not yet been agreed upon and signed by President Trump, I will only discuss briefly President Trump's executive order and make references to the Democrats' bill and how it compares to President Trump's executive order. I will save my full discussion and critique for another video, And if police reform is not passed and signed by President Trump in a couple of weeks, I will do another video with a more detailed discussion and critique of President Trump's executive order and the bill passed by the House. I was pleased with President Trump meeting with the Grieving Families and law enforcement and the statement he made concerning law enforcement. However, there are certain things about his order that I don't fully agree with. I really feel like President Trump would take a firmer stance in support of police. However, I will have to take into consideration that this is an election year. I firmly believe that the main reason for so much support is for votes and not to help the people who need the help the most. One thing that President Trump stated was that a national database would be created and complaints filed against police officers would be kept in the database. It is unclear whether all complaints would be reported or just certain complaints would be kept in that database. Of course, I know police officers know, and most of you know, that a lot of complaints filed against police are unfounded and don't have anything to do with the issue of excessive force or any serious conduct that could, if true, lead to a police officer being fired and maybe even prosecuted. One of the concerns I have is whether those records would be made public. Apparently those records are already available to the public because the complaints filed against Derek Chauvin, the police officer that is charged with murdering George Floyd, have already been made public. This has been one of the main topics which is being discussed to support the theory that George Floyd was murdered. Since I will be discussing the complaints filed against Derek Chauvin in more detail in my next video, I will not discuss those in more detail in this video. You need to watch that video to not only get my personal opinion, but also my opinion from a legal perspective. While a national database is part of what the Democrats have in their bill, they want to take it a step further by taking the decision out of the hands of the police departments and states and appoint a citizens committee to hear and resolve those complaints. It is uncertain how that would be done and who would be appointed to sit on that committee. Would it require another bureau to be created, and how much would that cost the American taxpayer? Bureaucracy is already a problem in our government and is costing the American taxpayer millions and millions of dollars to keep them up and maintained. We are looking more at draining the swamp and not adding to the existing problems. Even though there are other parts to President Trump's executive order and the House bill, the last part of President Trump's executive order that I will discuss is to provide, quote, discretionary funding for police departments to improve training of police officers and to pursue non-lethal weapons for more effective law enforcement. Quote, discretionary funding, end quote, is a red flag to me because who will make the decision on how much and which departments would get that discretionary funding? Would those departments getting that funding have to meet the demands of our federal government to be eligible to receive those funds? I'm a constitutionalist, anti-socialist, a states' rights advocate, so anytime states have to give up their states' rights, I'm very, very concerned. The 10th Amendment providing for states' rights was intended by our founding fathers to give the states the right to govern issues concerning the states. I do see situations where our federal government may need to step in, but in my opinion, this is not one of them, at least not right now. Now to answer the question, is police reform needed? In my opinion, the answer to that question is no. While I can see some policy changes, those are usually police policies, which is a responsibility of the states and each individual police department to address and resolve. As I stated earlier, there may be situations where the federal government or courts may need to step in to address and resolve those problems, but at this time, it is not one of those situations. If this is done right now, what kind of message would this convey to the criminal elements in our society? Would this be telling them that if they want to resist, quote, we have your back, end quote, and we will again put the blame on police? I predict that this is only going to make matters worse, especially for police. What about the additional restraints that we are putting on police officers who are good police officers and are dedicated to protect and serve? As I stated earlier, there have already been 97 police officers killed in the first 6 months of this year. I anticipate that that number will more than double during the next 6 months if police reform is passed into law. How many dead police officers will it take before the real problems are addressed? There are already police officers who are walking off the job and quitting, police who are calling in sick to protest what is going on and leaving our communities without police there to protect them. Police officers who are filing for and are planning on filing for early retirement. Several years ago, not only were good police officers hard to find, but people who had wanted to be a police officer decided not to be a police officer because of the additional high risk involved to protect and serve. Who will be left to hire to keep our neighborhoods safe? What about the innocent, law-abiding people who live in the high-crime areas, most of whom are black and some of whom are elderly? I was watching a video where two highly educated black men were discussing police reform. The eldest of the two stated in part that those people in those areas need police, and without them they won't survive, and I agree. The crime rate and the murder rates in those areas in some cities have more than doubled. The black lives that matter most to me right now are those blacks living in those high crime areas. I don't know if you enjoyed my ranting and raving, but since this video is longer than I intended, I will end it here. If you did enjoy it, watch my next video because it is only going to get worse. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope that you have learned something from this video which will be beneficial in helping you understand what is going on and what, working together, we can fix. Please like and subscribe below, and when subscribing, hit the bell icon and you will get a notice when I publish my next video. I not only welcome, but I encourage you to leave your comments below. Through the comments, we can have the conversations, discussions, and our dialogues needed to bring us closer together as a nation and to address and solve the problems without government involvement that is destroying this great nation of ours. Thanks again for watching. God bless America.